A political legal earthquake just erupted in the heart of Washington, D.C., when Judge Charles Hargrove thought a $500 fine would silence Karoline Leavitt. He was gravely mistaken. Leavitt not only resisted, she counterattacked with an $800 million legal blow at 27 sharp and outspoken. Leavitt isn't just the youngest White House press secretary in history, she's the new icon of uncompromising conservatism. And this time her target isn't the liberal media or Hollywood, but a federal judge sitting on the bench of justice. It all began in a tense courtroom where Leavitt was sent on President Trump's orders to oversee a lawsuit involving a group of Christians banned from public prayer. But instead of merely observing, she became the focal point. When Judge Hargrove fined her $500 just for wearing a cross in front of dozens of witnesses, the judge loudly criticized her as a fanatic and declared, "The cross doesn't belong here." But Karoline didn't flinch as soon as she left the courtroom. She called her lawyer and declared Sue Hargrove and the D.C. court for defamation violation of the First Amendment. This is the counterattack, and it's worth $800 million, while the press was still debating the legality of the fine Karoline unleashed. A thunderbolt, the media exploded. Social media erupted. One side called her a warrior for religious freedom. The other accused her of exploiting faith for political aggression. And according to some insider sources, Judge Hargrove is facing immense pressure, not just from the public, but from within the judiciary itself, amid rising public outcry and mounting pressure from both the political and judicial systems. Judge Hargrove's seat is starting to wobble, Karoline Leavitt isn't backing down, and the storm she's created is just beginning. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories at the White House office. Karoline Leavitt's eyes blazed with determination. The silver cross around her neck gleamed as if reminding her of the battle she just ignited at the D.C. District Court. The recording of Judge Charles Hargrove's insults, fanatic, dangerous spokesperson, still echoed in her mind. She didn't just want to win, she wanted him to pay dearly. Karoline's fingers flew across her laptop, sending an email to Rachel Harper, the notorious conservative lawyer nicknamed the Judge Hunter Rachel. Her blonde hair tightly bunned stepped into the room, her voice sharp as a blade. "Hargrove isn't just targeting you. Karoline, he's a pawn of the liberal elite, trying to weaken Trump through you." Rachel laid out the plan: charge Hargrove with intentional defamation while suing the D.C. court for enabling anti-religious bias. "Will demand the federal court expedite the proceedings." Rachel emphasized, her eyes gleaming. "The damage to your reputation is urgent. They'll have to comply." Karoline nodded, feeling her pulse race. She wanted Hargrove to feel the pressure she felt in that courtroom. Just 24 hours later, the federal court agreed, ordering Hargrove to provide all related documents within 48 hours, a harsh deadline. Karoline didn't wait. She contacted Jake Torres, a social media strategist from Trump's 2024 campaign. "Jake, make #judge on trial go viral," she said over the phone. Jake, with the speed of a hacker, coordinated with TikTokers and YouTubers, pushing the courtroom audio onto X within hours. The hashtag surged past 50. Ilzron mentions, with a viral video footage of Karoline standing at the defendant's podium, her resolute voice echoing through the speakers of thousands. "Hargrove thinks he's above the law," a TikToker commented. "But Karoline will show him justice." Meanwhile, in a dimly lit D.C. office, Hargrove sat hunched behind his desk. His eyes panicked. News of the $800 million lawsuit flooded TV screens. He turned on his computer, hands trembling as he opened his email, scrambling for a way to respond. "This is just a young girl's stunt," he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. He called Judge Ellen Carver a longtime ally with silver hair and a cold gaze. "Ellen, what does she have against me?" Hargrove asked, his voice faltering. Carver, in another courtroom, whispered over the phone, "Calm down, Charles. I'll put pressure on the witnesses. She can't win without evidence." Hargrove nodded, but sweat beaded on his forehead. Suddenly, an anonymous email landed in Karoline's inbox, sent by Ethan Brooks, an IT staffer at the D.C. court. "I saw Hargrove and Carver's emails," Ethan wrote. Attaching a PDF, Karoline opened the file, her heart pounding. It was a chain of emails between Hargrove and Carver, plotting to teach Karoline a lesson, to send a message to Trump. One line enraged her: "Target her cross, it'll throw the conservatives into chaos." Karoline forwarded the email to Rachel, then to Jake, go public, now she ordered within hours. Fox News ran the headline, DC Judge Conspires to Smear White House Press Secretary, #Judge on Trial Exploded Surpassing 100. In draw, 0 mentions with ex-users commenting, Hargrove's done! Karine's a legend! Hargrove, watching the news at home, felt the floor collapse beneath him. He opened his laptop trying to delete emails from the court's server, but a message popped up. System has saved copies. Ethan Brooks from the corner of the IT office smiled discreetly, having just sent a tip to Linda Martinez, an investigator with the DC Judicial Council. Linda, with 20 years of experience, received Ethan's message and immediately assembled her investigative team. If Hargrove deletes evidence, he's violating federal law. She said, her voice firm. Meanwhile, Hargrove's colleagues began distancing themselves. Miss Thompson, the court clerk, secretly photocopied her notebook, preparing to hand it to Karoline James. Wilson, a court officer, whispered to a colleague, Hargrove was wrong. Leavitt's doing the right thing. Karoline knew Hargrove was terrified, and she wasn't done. Rachel walked in, placing a thick stack of documents on the table. The court just ordered a search of Hargrove's office. She announced, We're about to get more evidence. Karoline nodded her hand, touching her cross. Linda Martinez stood in the D.C. District Court's archive room, fluorescent lights illuminating her stern face with 20 years of investigative experience. She knew the leaked emails from Ethan Brooks revealing Judge Charles Hargrove and Ellen Carver's plot against Karoline Leavitt were just the tip of the iceberg. Her hand glided over dusty file shelves, stopping at a locked iron box labeled Internal. Records! Hargrove, open it! Linda ordered her assistant, her voice low but sharp. Outside, the investigative team searched Hargrove's office, the sound of footsteps and rustling papers echoing through the hallway. Karoline's $800 million lawsuit was shaking. DC and Linda was determined to find evidence to crush him. Meanwhile, Karoline sat in her White House office, her laptop screen glowing with hundreds of posts. She clicked on a new TikTok video, a young man reenacting Hargrove, yelling at her in court, captioned Karoline's burning down the system. She smiled, but her eyes were icy. Jake Torres, the media strategist, knocked on the door holding a tablet. Karoline Thompson just reached out. She has what we need, he said. His voice excited Thompson. The court clerk had sent a brief message. 12 years of notes. Hargrove targeted religion. Meet me tonight. Karoline nodded, adrenaline surging. She knew this fight wasn't just for her, but for millions trampled by the judiciary at a small cafe on the outskirts of D.C. Thompson. Her hair tightly bunned, slid a leather-bound notebook across the table to Karoline Hargrove. Find crosses, he jabs anything tied to faith, she whispered, glancing around, but T-shirts with vulgar slogans. He laughed them off the notebook. Listed dozens of cases. A man fined $400 for wearing a prayer pin. A Muslim woman warned for her headscarf. Karoline flipped through the pages, her fingers gripping the cover tightly. This is gold, she said, her voice low but resolute, though nodded, her eyes flickering with fear. If he finds out I did this, I'm out of a job, she said. Karoline placed a hand on her shoulder. You're doing the right thing. I'll protect you. At the same time, Linda opened the iron box in the archive room, uncovering Hargrove's black file, a thick dossier documenting 200 cases of fines on religious symbols over 5 years, 80% targeting Christians. A handwritten note by Hargrove shocked her. Keep the courtroom clean of fanaticism. Linda frowned, passing the dossier to her analysis team. She called James Wilson, the court officer who had witnessed Hargrove's behavior. Wilson, standing outside the courthouse hallway, spoke in a low voice over the phone. I counted 25 cases last year, crosses, pins. He fined them double compared to other violations. Linda jotted notes quickly, sensing the web of injustice unraveling. Karoline, back at the White House, received an email from Linda with a scanned copy of the black file. She read each line, her anger flaring. She called Jake, posted all on social media platforms. The public needs to know who Hargrove is within 30 minutes. Judge on trial surpassed 300,000 mentions, with images of the dossier pages going viral. One post read, Hargrove finds crosses but lets vulgar shirts slide. He's got to go. Karoline appeared on Newsmax, her voice steely. Hargrove isn't a judge. He's an oppressor of faith, and I'll expose him. Viewers applauded through the screen, the hashtag exploding globally. Harov in his dark apartment watched the news with a pale face. His phone buzzed incessantly. The Judicial Council had called an emergency meeting. He opened an email seeing a notice from Linda. Provide an explanation within 24 hours. His hands shook as he tried calling Carver, but she didn't answer. He scrolled through his phone, seeing mocking posts. Harov start packing. He slammed his hand on the table. His voice, she's just a girl. But deep down he knew he was losing. He dialed an unknown number, a secret fixer. I need to get out of this, he whispered, his eyes frantic. Linda, at the investigation office, received a new email from Ethan Brooks. Harov was taking orders from Senator Daniel Cleen. Ethan wrote attaching emails between Hargrove and Cleen, a prominent anti-Trump liberal figure. Cleen wrote, "Target Leavitt, discredit her and Trump will falter." Linda forwarded the email to Karoline with a note. This is the spark you need. Karoline read the email, her lips pursed tightly. She called Rachel Harper. We've got Harov and Cleen push the lawsuit harder. Rachel, in her law office, gave a cold smile. They don't know who they've just messed with. Jake at the media headquarters pushed the Cline email onto X with the caption, Hargrove is a puppet of the liberal elite. The Newsmax video went viral with comments, Karoline is tearing the system apart. Crowds began gathering outside the D.C. courthouse, holding signs reading Justice for Faith. Harov from his apartment heard the chants through the window. He drew the curtains, his heart pounding. A message from the fixer arrived, plane-ready, Switzerland tomorrow. Harov nodded, but his eyes were vacant. He knew he wasn't just losing power, he was losing everything. Karoline Leavitt stood before a mirror in the White House press room, adjusting her navy blazer, the silver cross gleaming like an unyielding flame. The TV screen behind her showed crowds outside the D.C. District Court, holding high signs reading Justice for Faith after Harov's black file, and Senator Daniel Klein's emails were exposed on social media, spreading like wildfire. Karoline took a deep breath, preparing for the biggest press conference of her career. She didn't just want to win the $800 million lawsuit, she wanted Charles Harov, completely isolated with nowhere to hide. Rachel Harper, Karoline's lawyer, walked in holding a new stack of documents Linda just sent. More evidence, Rachel said, her voice triumphant. Hargrove contacted Cline through an encrypted app, but Ethan recovered. The messages, Karoline skimmed the printout. Hargrove wrote, Leavitt is a threat, we must silence her. She gave a cold smile, handing the documents to Jake Torres. The media strategist, Jake, make this a blockbuster, she said. Jake nodded, his eyes gleaming, immediately contacting the TikToker and YouTuber team. Within hours, the encrypted messages were turned into a viral video with flashing text. Harov conspired against Karoline. Who is he under blazing flashbulbs? Karoline stepped to the press conference podium, her voice resounding. Charles Hargrove didn't just find me for my faith. He's a puppet of the liberal elite, targeting me to hurt President Trump. She held up the Harov Cline message, printout cameras zooming in. This is proof he conspired to defame me and through me millions of people of faith. The press room erupted with questions. But Karoline remained calm, citing the black file in Thompson's notebook. The media exploded. One post read, Karoline just dropped a nuclear bomb on Hargrove. The press conference video hit 1 million views in 2 hours outside the D.C. District Court. A crowd of hundreds gathered, chanting Harov resign banners depicted crosses, and the words, Justice for Karoline, waved high. A mother held up a photo of her son, once fined by Harov for a prayer pin, shouting, Leavitt speaks for us. Fox News and Newsmax broadcast live, calling Karoline a torch of justice, but CNN and MSNBC pushed back, labeling her a political agitator. Karoline fired back on Newsmax. That night, her voice sharp. They call me an agitator. I'm just demanding the justice Harov trampled. The public rallied. Karoline won liberal media. Zero Hargrove, hiding in his dark apartment, turned on the TV, seeing Karoline's face fill the screen. He shut it off, hands trembling. His phone flooded with messages from colleagues distancing themselves. He opened the door, finding a letter from his wife, Charles. I can't go on. I'm gone. His son, a young lawyer, posted on X. I'm ashamed of my father. Harov slumped into a chair, his mind reeling. He scrolled social media, seeing mocking memes, an image of him in a clown hat captioned, Hargrove. The hypocrite judge he called his fixer. his voice breaking. "Isn't the plane ready?" "I can't take this anymore," the fixer replied. "Tomorrow morning, Switzerland, stay quiet." The next day, Hargrove, still in his apartment, heard patrol cars nearing his home. Linda Martinez's investigative team had arrived with a search warrant. He drew the curtains. His heart pounding. A message from Carver came. "Charles, they have everything." "I can't help anymore." He threw his phone, screaming, "She's destroyed me." He opened a suitcase stuffing in documents. His eyes frantic, the fixer called again. "Planes ready, don't get caught." Hargrove nodded, knowing he had no choice. He looked at his apartment one last time, the sense of power he once had evaporating. Linda at the courthouse received a report from the search team. Hargrove left behind a laptop with undid data, confirming his encrypted app communications with Clean. She called Karoline. "We have more messages." Hargrove's about to flee. Karine at the White House stood by a window looking out at a twinkling DC. "Let him run," she said, her voice cold. "Justice will catch up." She touched her cross, feeling the strength of those standing behind her, the federal. Courtroom in Washington, D.C., buzzed with tension. Sunlight streaming through tall windows, casting sharp shadows on the polished wooden floor. Karoline Leavitt, standing at the plaintiff's table, her navy blazer impeccable. The silver cross gleaming as an uncompromising challenge, the $800 million defamation lawsuit against Charles Hargrove, and the D.C. court system reached its peak, fueled by a cascade of evidence. Hargrove's black file, Thompson's notebook, Senator Klein's emails, and the encrypted messages outside. The protesting crowd roared their chants, echoing through the thick walls. Karoline's image dominated screens nationwide. Today she wasn't just fighting for herself, she was dismantling a corrupt system with Hargrove as the target to crush. Rachel Harper. Karoline's lawyer adjusted her glasses, exuding authority as she organized the evidence. Audio recordings, scanned documents, witness testimonies. Across from her, Hargrove sat hunched, his once imposing presence now shrunken eyes, darting with anxiety. Ellen Carver, his ally, her silver hair, tightly bunned face, pale as she sensed defeat. Approaching the courtroom, buzzed reporters scribbled frantically, influencers live-streamed, and citizens clutched signs reading, "Faith over fear." Judge Amelia Ruiz, a stern woman renowned for fairness, banged her gavel, silencing all noise. "Pro se with the plaintiff," she declared, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. Rachel opened with lethal precision, projecting Hargrove's black file onto a large screen. 250 cases of fines on religious symbols over 6 years, 80% targeting Christians. "This wasn't a mistake," she said, pointing to Hargrove's handwritten note. "Religion is a threat." The courtroom gasped. Rachel played the audio from the district, caught Hargrove's voice snarling, calling Karoline a fanatic and dangerous lackey. She continued with Thompson's notebook listing selective fines, then Klein's emails urging Hargrove to smear Leavitt. Finally, she revealed the encrypted messages recovered by Ethan Brooks, where Hargrove plotted to break Karoline. The courtroom erupted in boos, and Ruiz banged her gavel for order. Karoline took the witness stand, her posture solid as stone, her voice steady yet fiery. "Hargrove didn't just find me for this cross," she said, her fingers touching the silver chain. "He turned the judge's bench into a weapon to crush my faith and my role beside President Trump." She stared directly at Hargrove, who shrank under her gaze. "He thought he could defame me, but he underestimated the power of truth." Rachel presented Klein's email, and Karoline read aloud, "Leavitt is Trump's weak point. Destroy her." Whispers spread through the room. A woman in the audience murmured, "She can't be stopped." Hargrove's lawyer, Victor Clean, no relation to the senator, tried to deflect, arguing Hargrove's actions were procedural. Rachel countered, calling Linda Martinez. As a witness, Linda, radiating authority, testified about the black file and Hargrove's attempt to delete evidence, a federal crime. James Wilson followed, his low voice recounting 30 cases of religious symbol fines in a year, ignored by Hargrove's colleagues. Thompson, trembling but resolute, described Hargrove's bias. He mocked a boy's prayer ring but overlooked shirts with vulgar slogans. Ethan Brooks, the whistleblower IT staffer, detailed recovering deleted messages, earning a nod from Karoline. Each witness tightened the noose around Hargrove. Cross-examination began. Rachel called Hargrove to the stand, and he stumbled forward, sweat beating on his forehead. "Did you target Miss Leavitt to undermine President Trump?" Rachel asked, her voice sharp as a Sword Harrove stammered, I was just staying neutral. And Karoline from the plaintiff's table was permitted by Ruiz to stand. Neutral, she challenged, her voice booming like thunder. You find my cross, but excused vulgar slogans. You took orders from Senator Kleiner to take me down. Why the courtroom? Held its breath. Harrove's face crumpled, his voice breaking. I was pressured. Kleiner said it was strategy. Gasps echoed through the room. Ruiz's gavel stayed silent. Rachel pressed on, displaying. Hargrove's note. Religion is a threat. This is your neutrality, she questioned. Harrove cornered, broke into tears. I didn't mean to, I was just following orders. The courtroom exploded. Shouts of liar resounding. Karoline, unflinching, stepped forward. You chose to defame me and countless others for their faith. You betrayed justice. Harrove collapsed into his chair, tears streaming as Ruiz called for order. Carver, watching, covered her face, knowing her own trial loomed. Rachel called Carver, whose testimony crumbled under pressure. Did you conspire with Harrove? To target Miss Leavitt? Rachel asked, presenting an email where Carver wrote, Hit her faith, it'll hurt. And Carver faltered. It was just a suggestion, but Rachel countered with Ethan's recovered messages, proving coordination. Carver broke, admitting, We thought we'd succeed. Boos erupted, and Ruiz warned the audience, but the damage was clear. Harrove and Carver were exposed, their plot laid bare before the public. The trial paused, but the courtroom's energy spilled onto social media. A post declared, Karoline just buried Hargrove. A viral clip captured her confronting Hargrove, captioned, This is justice. Reporters mobbed Karoline outside the court, but she spoke calmly. This isn't just about me, it's about everyone. Hargrove silenced inside. Harrove sat alone, his lawyer whispering in panic. He knew the verdict was coming, bringing his complete downfall. Karoline returned to the White House, greeted by applause from staff. Jake rushed in, tablet glowing. You're a legend. X is calling you the legal lioness. She smiled, but her mind was on the next step. Linda called, Harrow's team is panicking. He might not show up tomorrow. Karoline nodded, touching her cross. Let him hide. He can't escape. Trump texted you, crushed it. Leavitt, keep going. She smiled, knowing Harrove's downfall was sealed outside. Protesters grew louder. Their chants echoing through D.C. streets. A young man held a sign. Karoline for justice. A pastor live-streamed, praising her courage. On X, a lawyer tweeted, Hargrove's career is over. Leavitt rewrote the game. Karoline, scrolling through the posts, felt her mission surge. Hargrove tried to destroy her, but she turned his hammer to dust. Karoline returned to her office, opening an email from a mother. Harrove, find my son for a cross. You're our light. She read it, heart warmed, but resolve intensified. TJ reported protests spread to Virginia. You started a movement, she nodded. Knowing this trial didn't just take down Hargrove, it was changing the system. Meanwhile, Harrove in the courtroom stared at the empty gallery, feeling final isolation. Karoline had won. And he knew there was no way back under the grey sky of a private area strip outside Washington, D.C. Charles Harrove, once a powerful judge, now cowered in a black coat cap shielding half. His face a small jet, weighted engines humming softly, ready to whisk him to Switzerland. A country with no extradition treaty with the U.S. after the brutal federal trial, where Karoline Leavitt crushed him with the black file Senator Klein's emails and unrelenting testimonies. Hargrove knew he'd lost Karoline's $800 million lawsuit, didn't just destroy his reputation, it forced him to flee, turning him into an international laughingstock. Harrove boarded the plane, clutching a suitcase stuffed with documents and some cash. The fixer. A gaunt man named Marco closed the cabin door, whispering, No one knows you're here, stay quiet. Harrove nodded, but his eyes were hollow. His mind reeling with Karoline's image on the witness stand, her voice thundering, You betrayed justice. He opened his phone, scrolling X one last time. A post hit him hard. His image mocked as a clown captioned, Harrove flees, Karoline wins. He shut off the device chest, heavy the power he once held, now mere ashes. Meanwhile at the White House, Karoline sat in her office, soft light illuminating her face. She watched a trial clip her confrontation with Harrove viewed millions of times. Jake Torres, the media strategist, knocked voice excited hard. Grove's gone. Sources say he boarded a plane this morning. Karoline gave a cold smile, running. Won't escape justice. She touched the silver cross on her blazer, feeling strength from her supporters. Thompson, Wilson, Ethan, and the public Linda Martinez called, "Voice firm, we have a federal warrant." Harov deleted evidence obstruction of justice. Karoline nodded. Good, bring him back in. DC Linda's investigative team searched Harov's apartment, finding a laptop with undid data, confirming his encrypted app communications with clean, a handwritten note hastily stuffed under a desk, made Linda pause. Leavitt's too strong, must leave. She snapped a photo, sent it to Karoline with the message, he knew he lost. The public erupted. As news of Harov's flight spread, TikToker posted a video, a private jet taking off intercut with Karoline at trial. Caption: Hargrove runs, but Karoline's the storm. The video hit 3 million views with comments, "Cowardly Judge Leavitt's a legend." International media joined the manhunt. A Swiss reporter spotted Harov at a luxury villa in Geneva, hiding under an alias. Images of him, Kaplau, sneaking into the house spread on CNN International with the headline, "U.S. Judge Flees After Bombshell." Lawsuit. Harov became the fugitive judge with mocking memes. Him on a yacht captioned, "Hargrove thinks Switzerland will save him." He turned on the TV in the villa, seeing his face on the news, the anchor's voice dripping with sarcasm from judge's bench to fugitive. Hargrove's a global joke. He slammed his hand on the table, shouting, but no one heard in DC. Ellen Carver faced consequences. The Judicial Council suspended her, launching an investigation based on her emails and messages to Hargrove. A young lawyer at the DC court resigned, tweeting, "I won't work under Hargrove and Carver's shadow." The DC court, once a symbol of power, now reeled in crisis with other judges scrutinized for ties to the black file. Linda held a press conference, voice steely. "Harov violated federal law, will bring him back." The crowd outside the courthouse cheered, holding signs, "Karoline leads, Harov fails." Karoline held a press conference at the White House, standing before the American flag, voice calm but powerful. "Harov fled, but justice knows no borders. He thinks Switzerland is a haven. We'll find him." She held up the $500 fine receipt from the initial trial, now framed. This was the start. Now it's victory. Cameras flashed. Social media erupted. Karoline's a warrior. One post read, "Harov runs, but Leavitt's his nightmare." She ended the conference, calling out, "Stand up for faith and justice, as we did today." Hargrove, in his Geneva villa, opened his laptop. Seeing the federal warrant, he tried transferring money to an offshore account, but the Justice Department blocked all transactions. A message from his fixer arrived, "They know you're here. Leave now." Hargrove panicked, glancing out the window, spotting reporters gathering. He drew the curtains, heart pounding, knowing he had nowhere left to hide. A Swiss news report called him a despicable fugitive. And Harov, for the first time, felt absolute loneliness. Karoline at the White House watched the news about Hargrove, her lips curling into a subtle smile. Jake walked in. "You did it hard," drove a global laughingstock. She nodded, touching her cross. "This isn't the end." Justice continues outside. Protests spread from DC to major cities with signs reading, "Karoline for Justice." A pastor on X wrote, "Leavitt didn't just beat Hargrove, she won for all of us." In Karoline, gazing at DC's twinkling lights, knew she'd turned a trial into a movement. And Hargrove, though far away, couldn't escape her shadow in the city. The chants of protesting crowds echoed, carrying signs reading "Karoline for Justice" after Charles Hargrove. Once a powerful judge, became a fugitive in Switzerland. The $800 million defamation lawsuit didn't just crush Hargrove, it sparked a judicial reform movement with Karoline as its figurehead. Posts about Karoline still blazed across social media, spreading from DC to distant states, making her a symbol of justice and faith. Rachel Harper walked in, a rare smile on her stern face. "The federal court just issued its ruling," she announced, handing over a document copy. "You see, won Karoline major damages, and the DC court must reform." The amount wasn't disclosed, but the ruling mandated the DC District Court to issue new regulations banning fines on religious symbols unless they cause disruption, and requiring First Amendment training for all judges. Karoline redelling. "This is the start," she said, voice low but strong. Rachel nodded. "You changed the game." The news spread fast. Fox News ran the headline, "Leavitt wins big, Hargrove flees." A pastor posted, "Karoline protected our faith." Jake Torres, the media strategist, sent Karoline a globally viral trial video of her crowds gathered at a DC park where Christians once sued for being banned from public prayer now held a celebration. They invited Karoline to speak, displaying banners Freedom Park thanks to Karoline. She stood on a wooden podium before hundreds, voice resounding. Harov wanted to crush faith, but we turned this park into a symbol of freedom. The crowd cheered, raising crosses and signs. Other states took action. Texas passed a law protecting religious symbols in courtrooms, citing Karoline's lawsuit. Florida and Ohio followed mandating First Amendment training. Texas's governor tweeted, "Thank you, Leavitt, for the fire of justice." The Justice Department, impressed by Karoline's victory, invited her to serve as a special advisor on religious freedom. She accepted feeling a greater responsibility than ever. A young Ohio lawyer wrote, "You inspired me to open a free clinic for victims of religious discrimination." And Karoline read, eyes shining, knowing her movement was growing. Linda Martinez at the Judicial Council Office released a final report. Harov violated federal law and Ellen Carver was permanently removed. The D.C. court pledged transparent oversight. Appointing a committee led by Linda, a young judge tweeted, "Leavitt forced us to look at ourselves. The judiciary will be better." Support continued with posts. Karoline didn't just win a lawsuit, she's reshaping justice. A TikToker created a video DC Pulse Park, glowing intercut with Karoline speaking, captioned "From Cross to Freedom." Karoline received an email from a young girl. "Harov, find my prayer bracelet. You're my hero," she replied. "You're the hero for holding your faith." Jake walked in, tablet glowing. "You started a revolution. Karoline protests reached California." She nodded. Looking at DC's twinkling lights, Hargrove might have fled, but his legacy, a biased system, was crumbling under her strength. She opened X, seeing a post from a law student. "I'm studying law because of Leavitt." She proved, justice is real. Karoline Leavitt stood at a podium in Congress stage lights, illuminating her face. The silver cross on her navy blazer. A steadfast flame before lawmakers, she presented a plan for national judicial reform. Voice echoing, "We must protect faith from unjust hammers." And the $800 million lawsuit against Charles Hargrove didn't just defeat him. It ignited a wave of change from DC's park to distant states. Social media erupted, calling her the unquenchable torch. Karoline, once a press secretary, was now a symbol leading the future of justice in the auditorium. Elise Stefanik stood, clapping eyes, shining with pride. A congressman tweeted, "Leavitt didn't just defeat Harov, she's shaping a new judiciary." Karoline concluded her speech, emphasizing, "Justice doesn't stop." When the guilty flee, millions watched the live stream, commenting. "Karoline is the future." A law student emailed, "You inspired me to study law, to protect faith." Karoline read. It heartwarmed, knowing her legacy was taking root in Switzerland. Harova, hiding in his Geneva villa, sent an apology email through a secret channel. "I was wrong," he wrote, offering to assist with remote judicial training. Karoline replied curtly, "Justice accepts reform but doesn't forget." She forwarded the email to Linda Martinez, who was overseeing DC court reforms. Linda, voice firm, confirmed Harov will face the warrant wherever he is. A viral post spread. Hargrove apologizes too late. Leavitt won. Under a twinkling sky, Karoline whispered, "Justice doesn't come on its own. We must fight for it." A pastor wrote, "Leavitt taught us faith and truth always prevail." She looked over the city heart, brimming with resolve. Hargrove could run, but her legacy, a fairer judicial system, would endure. "Thank you for standing with me," she messaged the post. Went viral, closing one chapter, but opening a future where Karoline led, unyielding. The story of Karoline Leavitt in Judge Flay's country. After Karoline Leavitt $800 million live zoot process, Speed Up reflects real tensions in American society today, especially around religious freedom, judicial bias, and the power of social media. Karoline's journey from being fined $500 by Judge Hargrove for wearing a cross to launching an $800 million lawsuit and sparking judicial reform shows individuals can confront unjust systems with persistence and strategy. Hargrove's black file, revealing 250 cases of fines on religious symbols, mirrors real-world disputes over religious discrimination in public spaces, like lawsuits over Christian symbols banned in schools or carouses. Karoline's use of X and the #JudgeOnTrial hashtag to amplify her case reaching millions reflects social media's role in shaping U.S. public opinion, akin to movements like Some and Me Too, or Black Lives Matter Cargroves. Flight and reforms in Texas, Florida, and Ohio suggest that public and legal pressure can force systemic change, similar to reforms following recent judicial scandals. The lesson is that in American society where individual freedoms are championed, anyone can drive change by leveraging the law media and community learn from Karoline document evidence. Like she recorded, Harrove find allies like Thompson and Wilson and relentlessly expose truth through X and press conferences, whether facing small injustices, like a fine, or large ones, like systemic bias. Fight strategically, because like Karoline, you can turn a cross into a symbol of justice. Inspiring a nation, hit the subscribe button to join Karoline in continuing the fight for justice and religious freedom. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video to explore new victories.